All right, very official. Hello, everyone. Happy Thursday. I feel like this week went by really fast, but happy Thursday. Welcome to our webinar. I'll give a couple minutes just to make sure that everybody can join that wants to join. As always, we will be recording this and sending it out. So no worries if you have to hop out at any point, but just thank you so much. Our first webinar of the year. Really excited to have you all here. And we have Sam today. Sam has joined us before. Anyone who's new, we'll do intros in a little bit again, just to make sure that we give everybody the option to get on here in time. But Sam has joined quite a few of our webinars, and he is a very special person at Nonsensical.
Special person.
Yeah,
Brilliant.
I would
Thank
say.
you.
I would say.
Oh,
Um,
you.
Love it. So today we're going to be talking about all things in terms of how to win on TikTok in 2025. It's changed so much since it first launched. It's changed so much since lockdown, specifically when it kind of skyrocketed to popularity. So we just kind of wanted to take the time to reset the scene, show you some of the big features, some of the big changes that have happened on the platform, and kind of walk through our updated methodology as well. For those of you who have joined us, we've had previous webinars, which we will link to throughout and also just share at the end. Just kind of talking about how we approach TikTok. It's a little different to some other things that we've seen on other platforms. So we just wanted to refresh because that also updates as TikTok updates. So thank you so much again for joining. I'll do a quick intro to myself. I am Melina. I'm the head of partnerships at Nonsensical. I work with the team to put these webinars on once a month. So as I mentioned, for those who are new, this is our first webinar of the year, but we have a backlog of webinars and we will be continuing this throughout 2025. Sam, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, thank you. I'm Sam. I'm one of the co-founders of Nonsensical. So I've been here since the beginning, working on TikTok for nearly 5 years now. I've been in social media for about 10 or 12 years. I can never remember when social media you could actually start working in it, but it was around 2015 I first started taking a plunge into this world. I spend my days trying to make TikToks work for brands, basically trying to get impact for brands, trying to find them a space on TikTok that works and develop unique styles that actually gets them a form of memorability and impact on the platform. So for those who've not met me, lovely to meet you all. Hello.
Hello, hello. And I was telling him right before we let you guys in that his jumper looks really groovy. So I think he brought the energy to the webinar. But yes, amazing. If you have the chance to just pop a little hello in the chat, say hi, where you're from, and maybe what talk you're sitting in at the moment, just to kind of get the conversation running. And just a reminder, there's a little blue toggle above the chat. Make sure you have that set so that you're able to send a message to everyone rather than just the host and panelists so that we can all say hello. So there you go. Hello, everyone. Awesome. So we will be recording this. We will be sending an email out to everybody who joined or registered and was not able to join tomorrow with a little bit of a recap and links from things that we speak about today. But for now, we are going to jump straight in. We have a bit of a presentation to share with you just to kind of talk about all these updates. And Sam is going to take us through that now, but feel free to ask questions, use the Q&A function, use the chat. We're keeping an eye on everything, and we want this to be as conversational as possible, but we will do a dedicated Q&A section at the end as well, just to make sure we try our best to get to everybody.
Love it. Well, thank you, Melina. I'm going to start taking everybody through how you win on TikTok in 2025. Predominantly looking at the organic space for this webinar, and we are going to be doing some others coming up very soon for ads, influencer, and shops. So we're going to be touching on that, but predominantly this is how you win from an organic perspective geared towards brands, but also if you're a creator, if you're doing anything with a community page, this all works for you as well. So please, like I mean, they said, stop me if you've got any questions. I'll let Melina kind of flag anything because I can't see any chats. So Melina, let me know. The first thing, how has TikTok evolved recently? Some of these things you may know already, so forgive me if I'm telling you what you already know, but there are some great new stats that we find super interesting at the moment. 94 minutes, that's the average amount of time people spend per day on TikTok. That's 3 times more than Meta. That's more than like an old rom-com movie, which I think is wild. I think me and Melina are probably taking up a lot of the time on TikTok. Maybe we're picking up the average, but that is a big, big thing at the moment. People spend time all day and evening on TikTok. 1.5 million active users, billion even, not a million. Million is nothing. Billion users. It is wild. It keeps growing. 35% of users also sign up for something after learning about it on TikTok as well. And 74% of Gen Z will prefer to use TikTok instead of Google for search now. And that's 48% of millennials. I am one of the people here who uses this as my main search engine. If you've ever gone on holiday, you most likely use TikTok at the moment instead of Google to check things out. So it's just some of the ways that TikTok has been changing recently. And that search stat, that's very important. The updates you may or may not have seen, and these can fit for almost anywhere depending on the market you are, but there's now collaboration posts. This has been a big, big ask for us for ages on TikTok, but you've been able to do a collab on Instagram for a number of years now. You can now do this on TikTok. Not every account, but most accounts have access to this if you are of a decent following size, if you're verified. So this allows different brands to partner up with verified creators, with different influencers. And this is really good if you're running influencer campaigns, because previously you'd have to run an influencer campaign and it would just live over on an influencer's profile and it would never be on yours. Now they can appear on both sides, which is great for a follower transfer, for sponsored content, and just getting extended reach to your profile. So this is an awesome update. Expect to see this rolled out further as you carry on. It's also really interesting if you are somebody who's got 2 accounts. So if you've got a satellite account, more on that in a minute. So if you've got like a brand account for your business and then maybe like an employee-based account where you like put your jobs up, you can collaborate together. So it opens up lots of great possibilities for setting up new accounts in different spaces. TikTok Shop is now launched in 2 new territories. It's in Ireland and in Spain. Previously in Europe, it was just the UK. As great as Great Britain is, that's not enough in Europe. So Ireland, it launched just in December, as did Spain, kind of starting off as an invite-only thing, but it now seems to be fully rolled out. It's not as easy as it is in the UK to get set up there, so you need to get in touch with a TikTok rep or a TikTok partner. Spoiler, that's us as well. But this is becoming bigger and bigger. And if it works well in Ireland and Spain, expect to see this come into different countries in Europe as well. Germany's been on the lips of many people for a while, and I'm hoping that it does come over to Germany. That's where I'm based. But watch this space. Post scheduling. Has anybody got the TikTok Studio app, by the way? The TikTok Studio app is great. It's the official TikTok app that they launched, I think, in like November time. But basically, it gives you full access to like all of your analytics. But a really interesting thing that they've done with this one is that you can now schedule posts directly from a TikTok app. Not the main TikTok app, really annoying, but the TikTok Studio app, you can now schedule your content, which is an absolute lifeline for anybody who works in social and has to like actually schedule posts. So that's great. Also, this is the one place where you can download your drafts without the watermark at the moment. TikTok removed that functionality from the main app recently. I don't know if anybody knows that, but it was one of the most annoying updates TikTok have made. But you can save your drafts in here to the video, and which means you can post it on other channels like Instagram and stuff, which is fun. Search ads. TikTok search ads have launched in America. They launched midway through last year. They're really, really interesting. And they're going to be coming to Europe, I think probably Q2, Q3. No confirmation on that just yet. But this is where you can actually do a keyword-based strategy to target users based on what they're searching on TikTok. That stat we saw there earlier, 74% of Gen Z using TikTok instead of Google. This is where you can reach people to actually have product-based information get surfaced up to them. Now, when this fully rolls out across the world, it's going to be a bit of a game changer because it will really allow you to see what's trending on the platform, how many searches are actively happening. But it's also going to change how your creative is optimized a little bit as well. You can now upload thumbnails, custom thumbnails to your content, and that's going to get really key because the way to win in search is to have a really good thumbnail so that when somebody searches something, you know it relates to it. So you've got the thumbnail, you know, if you're searching for a card game, it says card game on there and it looks like really clear and all of this type of stuff. So this is going to get bigger and bigger as it rolls out throughout the year. The algorithm is getting more personalized. The algorithm is like the greatest thing about TikTok. We've known this for years, but now you can even customize what you're seeing as well. There's an ability to manage your topics. And the STEM feed has become really popular as well. So STEM feeds are like science, tech, all of this type of stuff. We've got one client who's had loads and loads of views from the STEM feed alone because their educational content keeps ending up in there. So I don't know if anybody's used the STEM feed yet, but just on your For You page, you can basically swipe over to the STEM feed and you'll see a lot more educational based subjects too as well. So expect to see this grow more and more. If you're a business who does educational content, gearing your content to this feed is a really good strategy for winning. TikTok search, like this just keeps growing. If you're not thinking about TikTok SEO right now, then what are you doing? We'll talk about this in a minute, but this will always keep growing. And it's the same on Instagram as well. Social search right now is probably the biggest topic for anybody working in search marketing, but make sure this is within your strategy as well. We'll touch on that in a little bit. And monetization, the creator fund. If you are a creator, the creator fund is paying out very nicely for certain people at the moment. For the creator fund itself, you have to have videos over a minute. There's a load of other different things that TikTok puts into this, but it's a great place to monetize your content if you are a creator, or if you're a business where actually you do a lot of long form content, so more of a publication rather than a brand. And there's things like TikTok series now where you can basically put your content behind a paywall for like subscribers and stuff to view things, which not many people are winning on at the moment, but it is an opportunity to look at in the future as well. So more and more monetization opportunities. And Gen AI. I don't know if you've seen TikTok Symphony, but you can only access this via desktop at the moment. But within the Creative Studio, TikTok are launching a number of different new features that are only open to advertisers of a certain level. But there's certain things you can do at the moment where you can actually get a generative AI version of yourself, basically put into TikTok to then act as an avatar for you, where you feed it a script and it will basically talk and sell products and do what you want all through TikTok itself. Now you have to be spending a decent amount of money with TikTok to activate that, but that might come from lower advertisers down the line. But you can also use stock advertisers. You can see hit these people on the right hand side at the top. You can now use these to basically feed scripts to talk about products or different things that are going on in the world that you want to just bring to life. You can also dub these as well. So you can get yourself basically saying like things in German and Japanese, and it matches your voice as well. I've done it with me. It's really weird, but it does work. And this will just keep on getting bigger. Always think with AI, think about what it was like 2 or 3 years ago with video and how far it's come. Like this year, this should just keep on getting bigger and bigger. Where it's really tricky is to get this to work in organic, but I expect you'll see a brand really start to win in the generative AI space for this soon. So those are the big things that have happened at the moment that we see influencing things. But now there's also some things that we're predicting based on some of the stuff that's happened. Episodic content has become really, really popular with creators, but you're also starting to see this with certain brands as well. There's a great luxury brand in America called Alex is Bitter, and they've been running the Bitter Universe. They're on season 3 at the moment, based around a cast of characters in New York and Manhattan. But you saw this really, really big, I think, last year with the Who the Fuck Did I Marry based content. Melina was a big fan of this one. But like the multi-part series just about this woman talking about the crazy stuff that happened with her husband. It was a great series that everybody was just tuning into to go and like part 1, part 2. I think how many parts were there? Like 147 or something
It was
crazy.
something crazy like that, and they were all, like, 10 minutes long, like, long form content, so I ate it all up, here for
Yeah.
the lore.
Here for the law, right? It's just great. And like having different episodes, people go back to the beginning, but it's becoming a thing now on TikTok. You've got Garrett from Goldies as well. He goes around like checking different locations. This is becoming really interesting, and you're starting to see a few brands shift to this as a strategy. So rather than having more sporadic content around different pillars, they actually create a channel that is almost like a TV show or a movie with different episodes that are happening throughout. And you're starting to see this get more and more higher production as well. Brings me on to that. Alex's Bitter was a great example of things being filmed in a much higher production way, but the Alexander Wang channel as well is absolutely brilliant for this. You're seeing the lo-fi model maybe start to shift a little bit to look different and be produced at a higher level. That doesn't mean that lo-fi won't still be the main platform and the main content that you see on TikTok, but getting things produced in a high quality way, but still making them work on TikTok, that's going to be the key for brands at the moment. As you see, like the Alex and Bitter stuff is filmed really beautifully and looks fantastic, but is very clearly filmed for 9x16. It is TikTok first still. It just looks more like a TV level production. And some brands, that's going to be really exciting for them. And if you can do high production, then this could be something that's really interesting for you. EGC, employer generated content. I mean, if you don't know what this is, really spend some time looking at this, but this is probably the biggest gateway at the moment for the majority of brands. This is where you use your employees to basically create content for you. And there's a few brands that have been exploiting this massively. There's a great brand in Australia called Fate the Label. Lots of brands in Australia do this really well. The Nitro Bar have been absolutely killing it at the moment, but there's so many different examples of just using your employees and turning them into the stars of the show. Sheer Lux did this for years as well. Basically, you start creating a load of brand ambassadors through your staff. It poses some challenges. What happens with the staff that leave and all of this, but it is one of the easiest, most simple things you can do as a brand who's thinking about what they can do. Just film the staff, get them talking about the brand. The people that know the brand the best, they're always the people that work there. So what can you do in this space? Satellite accounts, briefly mentioned this earlier, but what we're starting to see are some brands shift from trying to talk about everything on one channel to then setting up separate channels talking about either a particular niche or a particularly different area of their business. Edeka, they're a German supermarket. They've got about 5 different channels at the moment. They've got their main one called Edeka, but then they've got a job-based one as well. Then they've got some stuff around celebrating like what goes on behind the scenes, and they're starting to do that just by having different topics they can talk about. Another really good example of the Imi Eats account. They're a ramen-based brand, but they've also got a separate account just for them doing on-the-street interviews. So rather than trying to talk about loads of stuff on one platform, they've now broken that out into a specific area. So will you start seeing that as a brand if you want to talk about loads of topics rather than just talking about all of that on a channel and maybe making it a little bit muddled and not being able to find the right talk? Perhaps you can break that out. Interesting strategies. Signature sounds, this is very much on the creator side. No brand is really doing this just yet. But if you basically, you see a few creators at the moment that just have one sound that you always hear in the background of a video. Nara Smith has been doing this for ages with her kind of like lo-fi, lovely little sound in the background. And then the Schooner Scorer, if anybody's seen him, he's this British posh guy who goes around rating different schooners in different places. They're basically going to different pubs and getting a beer, and it always has the same piece of music in every single video. And it's great because now I hear that music, I'm like, oh, it's the Schooner Scorer. It's great. So I'm not saying the music is fantastic, but like you recognize it. It's good for memorability and brand building. So you're starting to see this happen in the creator space. So potentially as a brand, is there a sound, a piece of music you can own that gets associated with your brand itself? That doesn't mean a big commercial song, but something that's royalty free that maybe nobody's jumped on. Interesting. Exclusive creators. Instagram, I don't know if anyone's seen this really recently, but Instagram have now been trying to pay TikTok creators to go fully exclusive with Instagram themselves. And if that's happening on Instagram side, I can see TikTok trying to do the same back to their creators as well. They've got people that got big on the platform. So there's a chance you'll start seeing people, like you've seen with a lot of podcasts, where they've either gone Spotify specific or YouTube specific, like Joe Rogan and everything. I think it was Cool Her Daddy this week went straight to YouTube only now. You'll start probably seeing some influencers just posting on TikTok, or at least posting there first before they post from other platforms. So watch out for that side as well. And global brands being local. To me, this is really important if you're a global brand. Having a hero account for the whole world is one thing, but if you want to reach different territories from an organic perspective, you need to be thinking about what presence you have on the ground in that country. Duolingo have got the best example of this. They've got local accounts, I think, in Japan, Brazil, France, Spain, Italy, the US. They've got loads of different versions of this, and they invest a lot of money into creating local content. You can see here what they did in the UK. They had like Bellingham-based content during the Euros. In France, in Germany, they went to Berghain, and they do really, really cool content in each country. This is where the big brands are going to be winning. And if you're a brand who's got like a presence in a certain country, think about how you can leverage that a bit more to try and cut through some of these bigger brands there. Most brands will just still continue just doing one account to fit everything, but that's not going to work in Japan. That's not going to work in Germany all the time. You need to be dedicating some resource to thinking about how you activate on a local basis. Big, big thing. So those are the big things that we're seeing at the moment and some of the predictions that are happening. Melina, I'm not sure if you'd add anything to that before we just talk about strategy.
I don't think so. I would just say back on the high production one, because I feel like that can be a little bit scary and it also is a little different to what we all kind of joined TikTok for. But you mentioned it briefly. It's not that lo-fi is going anywhere. And it's also more so because there is a lot of content on the platform right now. So what is something that you can do a little bit differently, which might be a higher production video to stand out alongside the lo-fi. So it's just something to consider. It's not saying that we are going to completely turn into, or not we, but TikTok is going to completely turn into this high production video. There will always be a place on TikTok, from my opinion, for lower production, but it's just an interesting thing to see because that's a conversation that we've had to have with many brands. It's like your TV ads are up here and your TikTok content needs to be down here, but now we can potentially find a middle ground, which is really nice.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Absolutely right. So knowing all of that, we have a organic source that we use with brands and with creators and everything else like that for how you actually get impact on the platform. So we've got a methodology that we just want to share with you, which we think will work really, really well for 2025. And it's all the big things you need to be thinking about when you're crafting a strategy for how you win in this space. So, just in case anybody doesn't know, the algorithm on TikTok and how this works, right? It's not foolproof science here, but this is pretty much how it works. When you post something on TikTok, it goes out to a small proportion of your audience or of what TikTok knows about them. That could be 200 to 500 people, but if you've got millions of followers and you've got lots of views all the time, that would be a lot more. But basically, it's a small audience of people, and then TikTok looks at how that audience responds to said video. Do they engage with it? How do they engage with it? Is it with more positive metrics like sharing? Is it saving? Is it commenting? Is it doing all of that stuff? How long did they watch the video for? What was the retention? Did they rewatch it? Like, what is the overall watch time? So TikTok looks at these two broad things to understand, is this what we would consider a good video? Is it keeping people on the platform? If it's seeing the right metrics, it will push it out further. That's when you get to phase two. And the same thing will happen over and over. It starts going out to a slightly similar profile of the people that has been responding, and then it will keep on going, and it will keep on going after that. And then you've got virality, and then you've ended up with videos that basically reach the whole world, which is a really rare thing. That's like over 100 million views. But that is how the algorithm works. So if we're a creator or if we're a brand, we need to start from the very beginning, which is, who is this audience that we want to reach to first see our content up front? And for that, that is all about thinking about the talk and everything else you got. So this is how our methodology works, and we'll come back to this. But at the very beginning, finding a talk is so important if you're a brand. A space on TikTok that exists that you can win on and you can talk to an audience more specifically the whole time. Forget ads for a minute, because ads allow you to just go directly to the source and to put your content straight in front of people. This is organic and where you want your content to be seen consistently the whole time. So a talk, what I mean by talk, it's like a space on TikTok that you see TikTok content of. So for me, I have probably about 7 different talks I'm in day to day. When I'm on TikTok, I see a lot of sausage dog content because I have a little sausage dog called Gustav. I also see a lot of Man United content because I'm a Man United fan. I play paddle. I see a lot of paddle-based content at the moment. There's a lot of comedy stuff that I see. There is also a load of different marketing content I see because I interact with that. And I see occasional some science fiction books as well. So I'm in a load of different random spaces. How many talks are you guys all in? I'm really interested if someone could just put this in the comments, like what other talks are you in that you might not have realized as well? Recently, I ended up in the space on TikTok that was really, really weird. It was from a scene in The Crown where Prince Charles and Camilla have a big argument, and loads of people were parodying this on Halloween. And all the videos I was seeing on TikTok were suddenly people going, Camilla. And it was Prince Charles, like with the big ears and everything else like that. And that was, I was in the space for like a month and I loved it. It was great. But these talks are basically either super, super broad, like a sports based talk, or a little bit broad, like football talk, or they're a bit more niche, like Crystal Palace talk, for example. Sorry to use some football analogies, but there's other things like this. You can get really specific on like in the stands POVs of like Crystal Palace. That will become a specific space. You can have people on holiday going for like football tours. That's a space on TikTok. It can get really, 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 really niche. So as a brand, we've got so much choice about where we play day to day and how our content surfaces up in this whole world, right? It's a multiverse of interests that users have. And trying to target that is really, really tricky because a user could be in almost any space that's out there. So how do you end up in a talk? Like if you are doing content, how do you position it into a particular talk in itself? So if you've got a video, the way TikTok understands what is in that video is based on what you put into the video, obviously, right? So the keywords that you use are the most fundamental thing you need to be thinking of. So if I want to reach football talk, I need to say the word football in the video. So TikTok understands what it's about there. You need to think about where that is on screen. So the text that you use will help TikTok understand what the video is about. The caption that you use here, that will also help TikTok understand. The hashtags that you use as well. The sounds that you use, if there is a big sound within that space, that talk, that will help TikTok push it to a certain space as well. And then finally, engaging in that talk as well. If I want to appear in football talk, my account needs to interact with other accounts that are talking about football. It's a variety of different connections that subsequently TikTok can understand, right, I know what this account is about and I need to surface this content within this talk directly. And you can see here, this is an example of trying to reach airport talk, and TikTok knows it's about airport from the search term up here, and it's got airport over here and airport there, and it's filmed at an airport and the location is tagged as an airport. It's quite simple, really. These are the things that you need to do to make sure that your content goes to the right set of people. But you do need to decide who they are up front. That's a big thing. On the talk side, then, TikTok SEO is the other thing you need to then think about. The search aspect of TikTok, we talked about it a lot recently, is only going to get bigger and bigger. And TikTok's released a few different tools that helps make this easier for you as a brand or as a creator. You can now see how many search views that you have every single month for the last 2 weeks. If you go into Creator Search Insights, does everybody use that? If you don't know what Creator Search Insights is, please go on TikTok right now, search and type in Creator Search Insights, and you will see how many views you've had from search in the last 2 weeks, basically. And what that also does, it allows you to see different trending topics that you've currently got on there that are related to what your followers have, what it knows about your brand or your business. And you can type in specific terms and see, basically see terms that are currently on here. So here's an example for digital marketing. There are 205,000 people a day searching about a digital marketing job, for example. And these are the type of things you need to start integrating into your strategy. So if your talk that you've gone after, for instance, is digital marketing talk, what are the terms that are popping off currently from a search perspective that you can weave content into? And then how do you build that into your titles, your captions, your hashtags, all of this type of stuff? So you need to be thinking about all of this. There's a great stat where 23% of the people that open TikTok, they search on TikTok within 30 seconds. It's the first thing they do. They don't even go on the For You page. They just open it up and they go straight to there because they're looking for something. So how can you make sure that your brand or your subject that you're trying to reach gets surfaced to the very top of those search results? You've got to do things like answer search queries. It's the same type of thing you do for long-term SEO, long tail SEO. Use those keywords and hashtags. Engaging in the comments, this is really important as well. We've seen this with a few different clients where actually you can plant and seed comments basically around the subject that you want to appear for. So if it's about digital marketing, you can get somebody to basically say, oh, digital marketing trend in the bottom, and it will help surface this up as well. And you can optimize your profile as well. If you want to be being reached in the digital marketing space, make sure it says digital marketing somewhere in your bio, for instance. But spend time in the Creator Search Insights. That is like a fantastic place to learn from. It changes every day. Like some things will just become an explosion in there. Like a video will go viral about one subject and it will cause loads of people to start doing content around it and searching for it. So keep an eye on this the whole time. So if we've got the space we're going after, we know the keywords that we want to use, then we've got to create some content. We've got to create some content that actually works on the platform. Before we do that, though, what we need to understand is, are we entertaining or are we providing value? Are we being useful? I think this is a really big decision you need to make as a brand or a creator. Like, am I here to help people learn or am I here to entertain people? Like, that's one of the biggest things you can do. Just make that choice before you do anything. Because if you want to entertain, you really need to entertain. TikTok is primarily an entertainment platform. It's more like Netflix rather than YouTube right now. But it is also an educational platform. People come on here to learn. The STEM talk feed, that is fantastic. Loads of people are using that just to learn more about different things. So make a choice about what you want to do, and then think about how you can make content that grabs attention. Right. These are just some examples from brands that I think work really, really well. But TikTok is a place where you are on there and you are scrolling through like this, your fingers on the trigger, and you're dealing with people that are watching TikToks whilst they're doing other things. People are creatures where they just now barely pay attention. They're barely paying attention to the person next to them on the sofa or the TV that they're watching. They're semi-watching this whilst they're doing something on their laptop. So you've got to do content that cuts through and creates it, like gets people to take their finger off the TikTok trigger immediately. So it's got to grab attention. And there's a number of different ways to do this as well. We've got some on the left-hand side. We've done a different webinar before where we've talked in more depth about this, but things like visual intrigue that you do, like the relatability, the text that you have, what's going on there, the sound, all stuff which grabs attention. So any content you're creating, think about those first few seconds and are they super attention grabbing to a user? Plus, are they relatable to that person? Because it can be an attention grabbing video, but if it's got zero contextual information to me as a viewer, I'm not going to be interested in it. So make sure it's hyper relatable and it's found in that space, for instance, at the beginning. This example I think we did with Urban Tandoor a couple of years ago now for the Barbie thing is a great example. They're all wearing wigs, lots of stuff going on, really, really fast paced. It could not be more attention grabbing. So that is a big thing to just remember. Think about your attention. And then think about your retention. If you've managed to grab people onto the platform, they've taken their finger off, you then need to think about how you keep them with you for the full video. Your retention graph on TikTok is something you should be obsessing about, looking at how your hits have worked and how your flops have failed based on how long people have been sitting there watching the video. This is a video we did with Urban Tandoor and the retention was really, really good. 73% of people watched this video, but it's all based around like various attention triggers. It has a really, really like attention grabbing thing at the moment. You can see he's being pinned down at the moment. There's a really big sound that's happening and it's a short video as well. It's very, very pacey. This is a great example of like something made for retention. I think a great thing to just think about though, it's not about producing content that's short. It's about creating content that is fast and pacey. There's great videos out there. The series we mentioned earlier with like the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series, the 10-minute TikTok by Hilton. TikToks can be long, but they've got to keep your attention throughout there. So that doesn't mean you can just start creating loads of long-winded videos. People will drop off really, really quickly with that. So chop out the fat. Keep people moving, keep people engaged throughout a video as you go on there, but spend time on the retention graph. And then be reactive. I think everybody knows TikTok is built on trends, but as a brand, how do you do this in a way that actually gets you some form of cut through? I think the biggest thing you should forget about is CapCut trends for a brand, because how do you really bring your brand into that? you need to be thinking about how can you do this in a quick manner. Like Duolingo always been the kings of this. Like if you saw the stuff they did around the TikTok ban the other weekend, where they did the Peter Griffin sound and they released the guy behind the behind the mascot and everything. They're one of the first brands to do this. They're very good at starting trends, but being quick is super important. Can you get a trend out within 24 hours? If you can't, it's probably not the right space for you. The most cringe thing ever is a brand being late to the game. You don't want to be that kind of slow poke that's just rocked up. So make sure you're quick to stuff. Make sure it's relevant for you as well. This is a great one from Atwell Solicitors, which was the man in finance, which fit this really, really well with the old guy behind Atwell. So I thought that was a great version. Put your own spin on it as well. Don't just do a trend for the sake of it. Make it your own. This is something we did with Transport for West Midlands. If everyone remembers Merchants Chip Shop and the Chippy Diva, when that first started exploding on the platform, everyone was doing parodies of that. Instead, what we did, we actually went to the Chip Shop Diva themselves and we made a video in the style that we would do with Transport for West Midlands consistently, which is like a person going and using the rail and everything else like that. So make your trend about you and do it in your style. But then also try and predict, right? Moments will happen every single year, all the time. And how can you be prepared for it? Halloween will obviously be a trend. Super Bowl will obviously be a trend very, very soon. Like the Met Gala will be a thing. What content have you got ready that you can jump on just as it goes live? This is a parody video we did about the Thriller, which we just put out on Halloween, right? It seems obvious, but so many people forget about this. Predict what you can with trends and then interact with your audience as well. I think this is so important. There was a really good stat put out the other day just about like how many brands don't do this as well, but never post and ghost. I think people have probably heard this before. When you post, you should be engaging with both your audience and the audience that you want to reach. Just because you reply to your audience, it doesn't mean you're doing community management. And Beth Thomas did this post about this on LinkedIn earlier today, that just replying to your audience is the bare minimum that you should be doing on TikTok at the moment. How do you actually actively keep them engaged though? How do you be a little bit witty? You need to make sure you are responding to everything. You can't just leave comments sitting there, but how do you do it in a way that expresses your tone of voice and what you do? Alongside this, make sure you're engaging in your talk, that space we talked about on TikTok that you want to be in. How do you appear in there? Well, if there's a video that is about, like if you're trying to target student talk, what is going on in student talk, that you can basically position your brand in that space. And then if there's a viral moment, how do you get in there to bring your brand into the top of the tree, basically? This was a video that went viral 2 days ago, and every single brand is in there commenting, which, you know, maybe you don't want to be a sheep doing that, but it's such a great opportunity to get your brand appearing at the top of this one. So make sure you're engaging with people as well. That will help get you noticed on the top. It helps build a community. It helps get you into, it helps get more people coming back to your profile as well. Like getting that top comment, it's so valuable, so valuable. So all of that together, take over a talk. Like once you've chosen what it is, take this over, integrate search into it, find a style as well that you can own. That is something that people know about you. This is what we did with Urban Tandoor. We do basically loads of parodies with them. Create attention grabbing content once you start doing this. Be reactive as trends happen, try and predict them as well, and interact with your audience. Not just doing surface level replies, really try and build a community, both with your audience and your audience who's not already on your platform. They're there waiting to be discovered. So that for us is how you win from an organic perspective on TikTok this year. And Lena, anything you'd add to that?
Oh, I think you nailed it. It's a bit of a scary thing to choose a talk and go after, I would say. I think that's one of the things that we work with a lot of brands to feel comfortable about. But at the end of the day, I think what's important to remember is if you're trying to be something to everybody, you're not going to stand out. So choose the audience that you think has the most potential, that you can talk to the most authentically and the most consistently, and then use other elements like paid influencer, etc., to then go into other spaces that you might also be able to play in. But from your organic perspective, it should be consistent. I saw a question from Paula earlier about, or sorry, I'm not sure if it was somebody asked, can you do, yes, Caitlin, can you do content that is entertaining and then the next one be educational? We wouldn't recommend that, because what you have to remember is every time somebody sees you on the For You page, it might be the first time they ever see you. And if they see you the next time and it's a wildly different style or approach, they're not going to make the connection that it's from the same account. Most of content is served on the For You page. While search is changing that, that might help down the line, but most of the content is still being served to the For You page. And as a user, you know how quickly you're swiping through. So the less variance you can do as a brand when it comes to the type of content you're producing, the more memorable you're likely to be, and the faster as well. Once you get to a certain point where you are quite well known, then you can start to change it up a little bit more. But I think when it comes to starting from scratch and growing, the more uniform approach you can take, the better.
Yeah, and also think about like maybe that's an opportunity for a satellite account as well,
Yeah.
right? Like where's your educational account versus your entertaining? Like that's a big thing. Lots of brands may be looking at this year as well. I saw just a couple of like little questions on Creator Search Insights. It is locally limited at the moment. There are some countries that don't have access to it. I was in the Netherlands at a conference a few months ago, and you couldn't access it there. And some countries you won't see data for. You don't see much in Germany at the moment, but this will open up as it continues.
Exactly.
Nice. So outside of organic though, Lena.
Yes. So TikTok Shop is really big. I think it had a huge year last year. We got this stat where it actually generated more than 33 billion in US dollars GMV last year. So that is quite a limited amount as well, considering that it's not open in all of the different countries that TikTok is available right now. With the addition of Spain and Ireland towards the end of last year, we can expect that they're going to continue to broaden this reach as they continue to grow. So with this being a huge focus for TikTok, and also if your focus for TikTok as a brand, as a creator, whatever it might be, if your focus for the platform is to generate sales, TikTok Shop can be a huge game changer. There are some massive brands doing really big numbers. P. Louise is doing, I think I just pulled a stat today that they generated over 2 million in the last 30 days from, we use a certain tool that helps us get directional data for that, but it's a really big opportunity. So we just put together a quick little snapshot of what are the priorities from top to bottom that you should look at if you are considering it. And the number one is your shop optimizations. While it is still TikTok, you should be treating this, if you're going to do it properly, almost like you would your Amazon storefront. All of your product listings should be optimized as you would on Amazon or any other e-commerce platform. The description should be top notch. The imagery should be really clear. Maybe have some reviewed by little stickers in there just to kind of help show that social proof. But that's number one, have your shop looking absolutely pristine. The second thing would be affiliate marketing. The more affiliates you use, the more people are going to see it. That's the most simple way to put it, basically. I think there are some brands that want to be a little bit more, I would say, selective over the affiliates that you work with, and that's fine, but just know that it will slow you down. It's not a bad thing. It's just you're not going to get that astronomical growth right away. If you work with more affiliates, the faster you'll be able to grow. And also what we've learned is sometimes the affiliates that have nothing to do with your category or industry end up performing the best. So cast your net wide if you're open to it, just to start to get that ball rolling, because it can become a more self-powered machine if you have more affiliates talking about you. More affiliates will hear that you can make money by working with you and your brand, and they'll start to kind of churn this thing for you without a lot of input. But it does take a lot to set up at the beginning, I would say. With those things being the number one and two priorities, then you can start to use the likes of paid media to amplify that even further. You can create your own ads, or you can spark affiliate content that's performed really well and just kind of take it to the next level. Influencers are also really great. And just to make the difference, an affiliate is somebody that you work with on the platform on a commission basis. So they only get paid a certain amount of commission that you can set when they make a sale. whereas influencers are people that you would pay upfront to create content for you. And you can also negotiate a commission if that's of interest, but it's not necessary. And influencers can help with that social proof as well. But because of that additional paywall that all influencers have, we wouldn't say it's necessary to get started right away. And then lastly is organic, which just kind of encompasses everything that Sam has talked through today. Organic is 100% about building a community, but there is an after effect. If you've grown this community really well, if you get that loyal following and the loyal audience that you're hoping to achieve, the more likely that audience will convert for you. So I would put that, if your number one priority is sales, at the bottom of the list of things to do, but there is still value to it and something that you should be looking to do in the long term. So that's really quick review of what can be done and how we would approach TikTok Shop and brands just starting out. But if you want to learn more, next slide, please, we will be hosting an in-person event in March, all about all things TikTok Shop. We'll be sending a link for you to note your interest if you are interested. It's on the 18th of March in London. It will be a half-day event, and we will be having guest speakers as well, which we are confirming and we will be sharing next week. So please just let us know if you're interested. And this is our very first in-person event. For those of you who have been joining these webinars, I've been dropping hints and it's finally here. So would love to have you guys there. So just in that link that Christina popped in the chat, let us know if you're interested and we will be reaching out. Lovely. Thank you so much, guys. So that is the presentation. I saw some questions go through in the chat, but they've been pushed quite far up. So please shoot your questions through and I will kick us off in the Q&A with a couple of questions that we've prepared before, but use the Q&A function if you're able to. It just kind of helps us sort it a little bit more. But any questions on anything that we've talked about so far, just let us know. So Sam, what would you say would be kind of the biggest change that you've seen in the past year on TikTok versus when we first initially decided to focus on the platform?
I think the search aspect, because for years on TikTok, it was you'd post something and it either does well or not immediately, and that's the end of the video. Basically, it either goes viral for a few days and then it just drops off. But now we've seen content that basically has been maybe stuck on 2,000-3,000 views for a few months, suddenly just become the top result on search and gain 100,000 views over the period of a month. And the long tail of like a piece of content now just takes a lot longer than it used to. So never ever delete your content, I would say, no matter what you post, because there's a good chance it could do well in the future. Like, think about how your content can be surfaced up in time. Just because something does bad now, it doesn't mean it's going to stay bad. Like, look at that content over time rather than where it is right now. So that's a big thing for me.
Perfect. And we had another question. You kind of already touched on it, but are creative search insights locally limited?
Yes, they are. Yep.
Yes.
So you actually have they've started to change it as well. So previously it was just a global view, but now you can actually see how it is in certain countries. So I think you can see like where it is in the US. There was even Nigeria I saw appeared the other day. But basically, not every country has it. Netherlands doesn't have it. A few other countries haven't got it, but it will start appearing soon in other areas.
Lovely. And we also had a question. I did see this at the beginning, so thanks so much, Eve, for putting it back in there. How many followers, is there a follower limit that is necessary for the collaboration feature?
Oh God, I was trying to figure this out the other day. I don't know for sure. We'll follow up on this one. I don't think it's a follower limit. I think it's more of a verified limit that you need to be on this one. How big your account is, how much views you have. I need to come back to you on this one. We will release the data that we know.
Sounds
As a
great.
brand, there's no follower limit. I think it's specifically around like verification and stuff, but we'll come back to you.
Amazing. And I think at the beginning we went through some of the new features as well. Is there any one particular feature that you would recommend brands to use kind of first and foremost when creating on the platform?
I would always start on Creator Search Insights just to see. Like if you've got no clue about what you're doing, Creator Search Insights isn't like a golden goose that's going to lay you eggs and make you the best content creator ever. You still got to do good content, but it's a great way to understand the topics that are being talked about on the platform straight and foremost. Now, this is better for some brands than others, but I mean, if you're a fashion brand, for example, just type in fashion or fashion trends, you will see loads of different information on there. So it's great to understand actually what content's going on there at the moment. And what you get in Creator Search Insights that I think is quite interesting as well, you'll see the top videos. It will give you the top videos for those particular terms and the stuff that's ranking. So you can go on there and you can have a look at what they did and you can start to think about what your spin on that content would be. How could you do it in your content style? So if you're new to the platform, it's a great place just to get started. Like I said, it's not a silver bullet for anything, but it's a great place to just kick things off.
Love that. And isn't there something about like the content gap that you can see on creator search? Is that where that is? Can you
Yeah,
explain
there's
that
on
a
there
little
like
bit?
your content gap and like what your followers are like searching for. But I find it a little bit iffy at the moment. I hope they're going to develop that a bit further because it loves things like here are some terms that haven't got much content to, but they're so broad at times. So it's not always quite right if you're going after a space on TikTok. But if you're a creator, you've probably got more opportunity with it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And we have another question from Eve. So, how would you recommend finding relevant keywords for your content?
Another good example. So like if you let's take I don't know, let's take rocket ships. I don't know why I thought rocket ships, but rocket ships as an example. You may already have an SEO strategy off platform, but there are a number of different ways to see what is popular, like on Google, for instance. How are people searching for different things? So if you take your product or thing that you want to target, type it into, you can go on basically the Google search keyword planner and you can type it in there and you can see basically what people are searching on Google right now. And that's a really good place to start for what type of terms people are using. Plug those into TikTok, have a look at what comes up. If you search like rocket ships and Creator Search Insights, you might see a daily search thing and some related searches. But what you will see if you start typing on TikTok is it autofill with different searches around that type of thing. So if you type in rocket ships, it will probably give you like the searches that are happening around that. If you actually search and press the button, you will see halfway down the screen, it will come up with like what other people have searched around this term. So it's a little bit manual. You've got to do some workarounds there. But if you start with your primary term, look at what's on Google, maybe use the SEMrush tool as well. And that will basically give you like a starting point for how you can do it.
Makes sense. Makes sense. We have a question specifically around ads. So, with the Spark code, is that a feature that is launched selectively for Ads Manager?
No, I believe anybody can use the Spark code. So you can go on your content tomorrow if you're a small creator and give somebody a Spark code, and on an ads manager, anybody has access to be able to Spark content. I think there's certain content, however, that is blocked, like carousels. Not everybody has the ability to promote those on the ads manager. You need to get whitelisted. Um, but yeah, you should be able to use that if you're at any business.
Yes. But just in case the question is a little bit different, you can only use the Spark code within Ads Manager to promote it. I'm not sure if that's answering your question as well. So basically, if an affiliate were to give you a Spark code, it's only valid on TikTok. You can only promote it through the TikTok Ads Manager. But hope that's helpful. So one of the other things that you mentioned was creating satellite accounts. And we have a question here specifically about if we can, how you kind of measure the quality of output and keeping people on brand, even though there's lots of different accounts for one company.
How would you measure it? I think it all comes down to what you're judging success on from TikTok in its first place. Like many brands have got like an audience is not typically very homogenous, really. Like you may want to target Gen Z women who are interested in a certain thing, and that could be great. But lots of brands will have a segment that might be males who are over 50. And that's really hard to position all of your content to both of those people consistently. So you might just want to bring out specific metrics for those audiences and like a different account. Like, are you chasing follower numbers in that space? Are you looking at different views that you've got in those areas? I think separate satellite accounts are a really good way to make sure that your content is hitting the right amount of people, but it's also more work at the end of the day. I'm not sure if that answers what you wanted though.
It is. And also I would recommend, I mean, I think for this particular question from Rachel, they have a charity that covers many different areas, leisure, sports, museums. So it might not be a issue for you guys, but any additional accounts that you set up, we always recommend that you kind of go after different talks as well, so you don't end up cannibalizing your own content on other platforms. So that's just another thing to kind of keep an eye on. So if you choose those different options, you'll have a better understanding of what type of content should go out where. You can set up the different measurements for each type as well. So just something to keep in mind. But
The local aspect, I see. That was what that was.
yeah,
Yeah, that is
yeah.
a challenge. I think that's like a real thing you need to be quite careful of when it comes down to it. It's less satellite accounts, more like local brand activations, and that is that's not something we deal with directly, but I think as any brand, you really want to be quite hot on what those things. It's an opportunity for creativity with the local activations, but it can lead to all sorts of different problems. Like, is it Hobbycraft have got their like Hobbycraft Wimbledon account? I think is like bigger than their main account because it's got the staff there that are like doing loads of funny dances the whole time. So how you can activate that and make it very creative and be on brand is a consideration, but it is one you probably want to manage centrally in some respects.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So hopefully that's helpful. We also have a question about with the fact that search is kind of resurfacing old content as well as TikTok just in general, keeping that content not necessarily having that cap anymore, like you reach a certain level and it stops serving. Um, does that mean that evergreen content is more important than jumping on trends? And would we recommend that evergreen be a little bit more prominent part of the content mix?
Yeah, definitely. I think at the moment, you can't have an account that just chases trends the whole time because one, they're really hard to predict apart from, predicting Halloween and stuff. But your content should try and be original where it is. Like, what can you do that drives a form of memorability? Because you chase trends, you're going to look like everybody else. If you try and create content that's evergreen, you've got a much better chance of success over the long term. So trends should supplement what you do rather than drive what you do consistently. That slide I had there, which was like making sure you're relevant and you put your own spin on it, that's really, really key for me. So use the trends that feel right for you, don't just do them the whole time.
Definitely. And I think that kind of comes to life in the whole explanation of how we approach organic anyway. So find the talk, find the thing that you're able to speak about consistently. And if there is a trend that fits within that, you can be reactive in those moments. But overall, you should be building a strategy that allows you the ability to create multiple pieces of content consistently about a specific topic or space on the platform that you've identified that is right for you. So we have other things on previous webinars that go into that in a little bit more detail, but that is something that we really, really promote for brands because ultimately, if you see a CapCut trend, you scroll on past it, you won't know that it came from a brand. So what can you do to make yourself stand out and have people remember you? Lovely.
There was I sent a message back to some person, but just about B2B.
Yes.
There was a question just about a blur between B2B and B2C and if there's any good examples. But there's two accounts I would urge people to have a look at. One is SEMrush. We worked with them, but they are a SEO/digital marketing tool. And strategy there very much about reaching digital marketing talking kind of more of an EGC based strategy, an interesting one. And then ClickUp as well, which are a kind of project management based tool. But both accounts doing really, really well from a B2C, B2B perspective, but targeting people with TikTok based content. So B2B brands really struggle, I would say, on TikTok, but that is generally quite often because their social media struggles to think about anything that isn't ROI. The brands that win in the space on TikTok, they take a brand first approach rather than trying to sell. And that goes from B2B to B2C as well.
Definitely, definitely. And Christina is adding some of those links to those accounts in the chat right now, just so everybody can see. We have 1 minute left, and I always like to wrap it up with kind of more of a broad statement. But if there were three things that you could recommend for a brand starting out on TikTok this year, knowing all the things that you went through, what would you say those three things should be that they should prioritize?
Find a talk before you do anything. Find a space and really, really commit to hitting that top for at least 6 months. Take 6 months of doing content to go, this is the area that I want to target. Find a style that fits you as well, something that feels different and unique in that space. Like once you get that talk and you understand it, have a little look at what content's happening in that space. Is there something you can do that is different to what's already being done? And then finally, just post. Whatever you do, I mean, I'm talking about really putting in some pre-work to plan, but try something. I've spoken to so many brands in the past who've gone, we've got no resource, we can't do anything, our business doesn't believe in it. Well, just try something to that audience and see how it goes. There are some really simple strategies out there that are pretty lo-fi. Use carousels. That's probably one of the easiest things you can do if you're struggling for ideas. Have a look at what Gymshark are doing on their main account. They just have like gym photos with like funny like gym-based quotes across things. There's accounts at the moment that have just got tweets that are being screenshotted. There are really, really easy ways to try TikTok and see how it works. So those are the three big things I would say.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for joining. As I mentioned, we will be sending this out via email tomorrow, a recording as well as a quick recap. And if you missed the link to register your interest for our in-person event, we'll send that in the email as well. But lovely to have you all here. Our first webinar of the year. Thank you guys so much. And hopefully we'll see you on many more in 2025. But have the most amazing year. I'll say, not even just day, have the most amazing year. And we'll talk to you very soon.
Thanks.
Bye.